Today I would like to show you how you can fix your aerodynamics with simple methods. This is about the endurance racing team Tuning Akademie from Ingolstadt, Germany. It's a group of around 10 Audi engineers that came together to build a race car based on an Audi RS4 B7 to compete in the VLN Endurance Championship at the Nürburgring, including the 24-hour race. When I joined the team, there were a number of aero and cooling problems. The top speed was only around 225 km per hour. The rear felt loose at higher speeds, so drivers were not too confident to drive at the limit. The interior got too hot during long races. The engine overheated even at Nürburgring weather with less than 20-degree ambient temperature. And the rear differential overheated. Because of the overheating problems of the engine, the ECU pulled power, so the car got even slower the hotter it got. So how did we fix these problems? First of all, I had a look around, and one thing that caught my eye was the underbody. It consisted of two large plates, one horizontal plate and one angled one for the diffuser. The problem here was that the horizontal plate was overlong and created a sharp separation line. The flow couldn't follow the angled surface and always just separated. That was our first fix. We shortened the horizontal plate and created a smooth transition between both plates with a radius as large as possible. Another problem of the diffuser was that the tire squirt disturbed the diffuser flow, because there were no strakes to keep the tire vortices outside. So we added 4 strakes to maintain a clean center flow, which improved the rear downforce a lot. The car was a lot more stable at higher speeds and the drivers gained confidence. We had laser sensors at front and rear to log the car's distance to the ground during a lap, and we could see that the diffuser is working now, and producing good amounts of downforce without separations. But even without the laser sensors, we could see the diffuser working with streamlines that were formed by dust and dirt at the underside during a race. Another problem of the underbody was that there was one NACA duct in the center to cool the rear differential, but it was sitting proud on the underbody surface. That caused separations at the beginning of the NACA duct, and its performance was poor. And that caused the rear differential to overheat. The fix here was to smoothen the transition between underbody and NACA duct, and the cooling got a lot better. For summer races, we added 2 additional NACA ducts at the sides later on. With a decent underbody flow, these NACA ducts work fine at the underbody. Now that the diffuser was working, we had a very much rear-biased aero balance, so we didn't need such a large cambered rear wing anymore. We changed that to a much smaller one that produced less downforce and also a lot less drag, which improved top speed. A wing in general has an aero efficiency of around 3, and an underbody has around 11, so it makes more sense to concentrate on fixing your floor first. Then, we needed to solve the problems at the front. The team was running Audi's large single-frame air intake with a light mesh, without Audi logo, and with an opened-up crash bar, so the largest air intake you can have. And the car was still overheating. The stock cooling package was in good shape and worked how it should work. So why was the car still overheating? The answer was sealing. Lots of air was flowing into the car, but was then flowing around the radiators instead of through them. So it increased drag and reduced cooling performance a lot. So we started sealing the front of the car. We started with the path from air intake to radiator package, but then also continued in other areas of the front. The sealing to the bonnet was important too, to avoid unnecessary drag and to separate cool and hot areas in the engine bay. Advantage of this is that you can reduce your intake temperatures. The intake itself was sealed too, so we made sure that we use the high pressure in front of the radiator package and guide it through the air filter to the turbo. The next improvement was how the air exits the car. The team used a 600 square centimeter outlet in the bonnet between radiators and engine. But that was relatively small and created this parachute effect because the inlet was very big and the outlet pretty small. Ideally, you want it the other way around. So we opened the bonnet to the maximum allowed 2,800 square centimeter, which in return created front downforce because you increased the pressure on the bonnet, air flows up, so the car goes down. Additionally, we used an adjustable gurney flap in front of this outlet, which allowed us to adjust front downforce and cooling performance. With all these little fixes, the overheating problems were gone and the car was more stable at the front axle. In fact, the car had too much cooling now, and the engine couldn't hold its normal working temperature during a lap. So we used the original intake mesh again, which protects the radiator package a bit better from stones, and we started blanking the intakes. This reduced the drag of the car even more and also pushed the stagnation point a little bit lower. In other words, it again created more front downforce. We didn't have the money for a wind tunnel session, and we didn't have a proper simulation model to do CFD analysis. So we did our aero investigations directly at the car under race conditions. Advantage of this is that you don't have correlation errors between CFD, wind tunnel and track because you only look at the track. I then used self-made Flowvis paint and cotton threads to investigate the front of the car even more. Flowvis paint is simply a mixture of petroleum and colorful chalk particles that I then sprayed on the car. It dries while driving and it reveals the flow in certain areas, so you can analyze it once the car is back in the pits. Cotton threads, on the other hand, have to be watched while the car is driving. You could do this with onboard cameras or simply by taking pictures when the car passes by. These investigations then revealed that the canards at the side had a too aggressive angle and created big separations along the sides. They are usually there to generate vortices along the sides, which help with front diffuser performance, but we didn't even have a front diffuser. We changed them to a less aggressive shape and to a much lower angle, so they produce some reliable downforce without separations and a lot less drag. Also, we increased the length of the splitter to the maximum allowed size. These updates helped us to further increase the car's efficiency. We lowered the drag but increased downforce at the same time. Another problem was the temperature in the cockpit. The car still used the factory inlet for the interior, but because the hot air of the engine bay was now exiting over the bonnet, the interior got hot air from there and got even hotter. We then used two hoses that ran to the very front of the car to grab the high pressure at low temperature at the front and guided them to the interior. To improve the air outlet at the cockpit, we used cotton threads at the rear window to find the best spot. The original outlets were under the rear bumper. The new position shortened this way quite a bit, and now the pressure difference between in and outlet was a lot better. The driver cooling improved significantly. These small changes were all done without CFD and wind tunnel time. They improved the performance and reliability of the race car significantly. In fact, the top speed improved by 10 km per hour. There was some balanced downforce now. Cooling issues were gone. Intercooler performance improved. And we won the FIA award for alternative fuel the year after. So I hope you liked this little insight in one of the motorsport projects I've been involved in. Let me know if this video helped you or what other questions you have around race car aerodynamics in the comments below.